So the next question is really, it's about the cost of living. So um, disabled people are among the poorest in society, partly because living in a society which only really meets the needs of non-disabled people means that they continually have to pay more to get the same outcome in life. So this means that they are often, I think we know the phrase, continuing to choose between feeding themselves, having hot water and heating, keeping their electricity on. Particularly people who require equipment to live or move around is even more of an issue for. Can I ask all of you what you would do locally um, to actually support disabled people to make this better?
Try to. Um, yeah, cost of living. Wow, how expensive has things got over the past years? I was doing some calculations before I came to this event, and the median salary, the top end of the median salary in Harrow is around £40,000, which is a lot of money to a lot of people. In the year 2000, you'd have the spending power of £40,000, equivalent to £90,000 to £100,000 today, which is an extortionate amount of money. And that means that there has been a generational failure where people's spending money has been cut in more than half. So people now are more worse off than they have been ever before. And it's harder and harder for people to gain a footing in life because although everything's gone up and things have been more expensive, wages and earnings haven't kept pace with that. So that's something that we absolutely need to fix. And I recognise that disabled people are suffering almost the most because, as you say, costs are going up everywhere, and disabled people are more likely to need additional modifications, equipment, support services, people to come and help. So, whereas someone who is not considered disabled might just have to worry about rent, which is incredibly expensive, food, which is incredibly expensive. Disabled people have all these other things to be concerned about as well. And so when we're thinking about how we're tackling the cost of living and the costs that we can control, we don't think that we can freeze council tax because of the mismanagement of the finances in Harrow Council Estate. We couldn't commit to that pledge because if we went back on that, and if we had to raise council tax, you would everyone in Harrow, rightly be furious that we've committed to that and not been able to uphold our end of the deal. But what we have committed to is we've committed to limiting any raises in council tax for the poorest households, which would include people who are living with disabilities, and conducting full cost of living assessments prior to any increase in council tax. And council tax is a huge expense. It's a tax that people pay on earnings after they've already been taxed, and it really eats into their daily budgets and their monthly budgets. So what the council charges has to be limited as much as possible. And that review and that cost of living analysis would extend to every aspect of what council charge for any of their services. We do need to meet the needs of disabled people, and the Equality Act makes sure in legislation that people can have reasonable adjustments and they can have suitable ways of living, and reducing the cost of living to the extent we possibly can as a council is a number one priority for the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you. Yes, I think, as we've all said, and I said just a moment ago, the cost of living is affecting everyone. And that's why, in a fully costed pledge, we will freeze council tax in the first year when we come into power, and then review it on an annual basis thereafter. But it's not just council tax, although that is a big chunk of people's money. So 5% every year for the last 4 years, as we've seen, is a lot of money. But what we also want to do is look at the other charges that the council makes and to review these in terms of how that affects people in Harrow, residents in Harrow, and people with various difficulties and disabilities and learning disabilities and mental health problems. That how we can work to make it fairer for that portion of our resident society. And what we want to do is to work more closely with our voluntary sector colleagues and partners, such as HAD, to understand how in detail we can do this, what would make an effect? Because we need the information from yourselves and from the voluntary sector to say, well, you as a council do so-and-so, if you adjust it in this way, it would be of enormous benefit. So we need to do that work to understand fully in detail what the situation is. In terms of things like accessibility to transport, we will pledge that we will fight to make sure there are no changes to the Freedom Pass, for example, which has been mooted in some quarters, not in our quarter. But that gives such freedom to everyone who's eligible to it. It gives great freedom to me because I'm old enough to have one. But for people that rely on public transport to move around Harrow, it's vital that that is retained, and we will oppose any scheme to dilute that in any way. Thank you.
So as a disabled person myself, I know how much the cost of living is affecting us. We've got so many more needs when it comes to cost of living. So for me, I have to order groceries in because I can't get out of my flat to shop myself, which costs a lot more. I needed to get specific lighting in my flat so that I could see properly. There's loads of different extra needs that we have, which is adding so much more to our bill. I think we need a bit more council tax relief. I think disabled people need to be considered when it comes to council tax relief, because with the council tax going up so much in Harrow to the maximum amount, we're feeling the pain even more. Our bills are sky high, and we do need a lot more disabled input when it comes to the cost of living. I don't think we have a disability officer, for example, in the council. No one is in charge of disability, so we're not having any information fed through from disabled people. We don't have any local disability forum. So disabled people aren't even being recognised when it comes to council tax or the cost of living. And it's just not fair. The Greens will look at that. We'll set up a local disability forum. We'll think about council tax relief, because it's not fair that we are paying the brunt of the cost of living crisis when we've already got disabilities which cost so much more on us having a good standard of living. Thank you.
Cost of living is so much kind of softer word than poverty, isn't it? The cost of living, it's not a new thing. It's not just suddenly the price of bread has gone up, although it has, of course. People have been living in poverty for how many years now? Since the financial crash of 2008, when the banks left us in debt and we were left to bail them out. That's the reality. And the Lib Dems and Conservatives, with their policies of austerity, that's what they cut the benefits, they cut legal aid, they cut budgets to local authorities, they've cut everything. And everybody thought, we'll get a Labour government and it will change it. And it hasn't. They've continued the austerity policies. What's happened a few weeks ago? Universal credit cuts. People told, you're not too sick to work, get up and work. How's that helping disabled people? PIP under review now. You know, they're linking it to work when PIP is not a benefit that should be linked to work. You can get it whether or not you're in work. Now, the reality is, it's very hard for councils to alleviate poverty because most of the policies come from central government that are causing this poverty. And that's both Labour, Lib Dem and Conservatives, I'm afraid. What can we do about it? Well, you can actually start lobbying MPs to do something about it, but thinking about locally, there are some things. Council tax in Harrow is one of the highest of any borough. But the council tax support scheme, the benefit for council tax, this was localised by the Conservative and Lib Dems in 2013. And local authorities had to devise their own scheme. And Harrow, unfortunately, had the notorious label of inventing the worst council tax benefit scheme in the whole of the UK. So people in Harrow were paying more for their council tax, not just because the rate of it was so high, but because we were so mean with the benefits we would give. And that's been continued throughout Labour's tenure and with the Conservatives, who've made it even worse. So what could you do? There are practical things. And again, I go back to housing. You cut the cost of housing, you improve things for disabled people and everybody else. But other things, so if you review the council tax support scheme, if you look at social care, we believe that there should be council run care homes. And these would not only stop the kind of privatised people ripping people off with care homes, but also would bring money into the council and would provide well-paid good jobs instead of having agency who rip off people, give low pay, and the care workers are rushing from one place to the other, so they can't spend enough time with a disabled person. We believe that there should be free home social care. It's been done in other boroughs. It's not impossible. They tell you it's impossible. It's not. It's only impossible because they don't want to do it. That would improve things hugely for people who need that in terms of the cost. We think there should be a community supermarket. In the past, if you needed something, let's say you were in poverty, let's say you were a family, you had nothing, you had no food, you'd go to social services and they'd do a Children Act assessment or a Care Act assessment. Now they send you to the food bank. You know, when did that become acceptable? It's not. So a community supermarket would give people dignity that they're able to go and buy food at a reasonable cost that's not for profit, and also give people jobs. So it's a circular thing, really. The other thing is community spaces. Now, this is fantastic, HAD, and there's been many events here that I've been to that's fantastic. But how many spaces like this are in Harrow for people? You've got to pay for everything. Nothing's for free in Harrow. It's a rip-off council, and it has been for some time. So, and I'll just finish with education, because I've not spoken about this. Harrow has such a high rate of exclusions from schools. This is probably linked to so many of them becoming academies, but not entirely. And almost all of the exclusions are children who have special education needs. And this is because the schools are cutting their staff, they have less and less TAs. Now, when that happens, and I regularly see children who are out of school 9, 10, 11 months, but what happens then is the parents either have to give up work or they're relying on family to come and look after them. The other things are transport for parents who are working or trying to work when they've got children with disabilities, transport costs. And then, just on the blue badges, there's an awful lot I could speak about, don't have enough time, I know. But blue badges, we all know about, you know, the work capability assessments. Everybody's heard about them, how dreadful they are, how humiliating. The same thing happens in Harrow on blue badges, on disability badges. It's notorious. People go through awful experiences. They have their disability badges taken away, and they then have to fight to get them back. And people are told, well, I saw you walk up, you know, the Civic Centre car park, so you're not really disabled. And all of these things have a knock-on impact on people and the cost of living. It's got to stop. We've got to stop blaming ordinary people, disabled people, people on benefit, migrants, asylum seekers for all our ills, because it's not. It's the people who are making money out of us and our misery. And once we wake up and say, we're not having this anymore, it will stop. Stop the politicians doing it. Don't believe them when they say we're building more tower blocks because they're affordable. It's rubbish. When they say we're cutting your benefit because we're helping you, who believes that? When they say we're getting rid of educational health and care plans, we're giving more money to schools. Talk to the NEU, the National Education Union, they'll tell you that's rubbish. So all of these are things we've been having to pay for, and it's got to stop. And that's why we've got this new party, Arise, who will help to do that, because we will speak up for everybody and try to get things changed and stop the rubbish.